The war in Ukraine has turned into a multifaceted struggle, with Pokrovsk in the eastern front, Kherson and Zaporizhia in the south, and Kursk across the border emerging as the epicenters of the conflict. The expansion of the battlefield has become a nightmare for Russia. Russian military authorities moved frontline troops to Kursk, hoping to intervene in the incursion. The Ukrainians, seeing this as an opportunity, increased pressure on the front line. Significant successes, especially in the southern axis, have been achieved in the past week. The Ukrainian Guard played a crucial role in these victories. So, what is happening on the battlefield, and what is the impact of these Ukrainian successes on the Russian army? Let's take a closer look at what's happening in the southern axis. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, activate notifications, and give us a like to receive more content and support us. The National Guard's 1st Brigade, named after Mykola Gruevski, is holding back Russian troops in the direction of Kherson and Zaporizhia. During the week, the brigade's aerial reconnaissance units carried out 75 fire strikes against positions, military equipment, and personnel of the Russian army. The brigade's artillery conducted more than 20 strikes, destroying dozens of Russian observation posts, concentrations of personnel, firing points, weapons, armored vehicles, and ammunition depots. Oleksandr Pinin, commander of the Ukrainian National Guard, provided details and showed a video of the wounded. In footage captured by thermal cameras on unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, destroyed Russian equipment was clearly visible. At the same time, the footage showed Russian soldiers trying to escape from drones carrying explosives. However, these soldiers were ultimately unsuccessful. Aerial reconnaissance units destroyed 23 observation posts, 11 armored vehicles, 8 APCs, 7 communication antennas, 3 30mm guns, 12 military accommodations, and 5 different types of UAVs as a result of 75 fire impacts. The brigade's artillery units also dealt heavy blows to Russian troops, especially in the Kherson region. 12 Russian artillery positions and 5 combat positions were eliminated. We believe this blow to the Russian army will have a significant impact, as the daily updated Russian army casualty count continues to rise. The significant reduction in Russian equipment could play a critical role in shaping the future of the war in Ukraine. The depletion of newer and more capable troops, combined with increasing reliance on older models, suggests that Russia's military effectiveness on the ground could weaken. This highlights the broader challenges of sustaining a prolonged military campaign, especially when relying on limited resources and outdated equipment. But the losses to the Russian army aren't limited to military capabilities. In the last 24 hours, 1,250 Russian soldiers have been eliminated, bringing the total number of casualties to over 646,000. In this context, Russia is taking various measures to bolster its military ranks, including offering economic incentives and issuing electronic recruitment notices. This is part of a broader Kremlin strategy to quietly increase its armed forces without triggering the social unrest seen in previous mobilizations. Russian President Vladimir Putin's decision to add 180,000 soldiers in 2024, bringing the total to 1.5 million by the end of the year, is the latest step in this plan. However, the reality of Russia's recruitment efforts reveals a more problematic situation, where the country struggles to maintain its war effort amid high casualty numbers, equipment shortages, and declining public support for the war. Putin's January 2024 decree to expand the Russian army follows similar measures in 2022 and 2023, when troop numbers increased by 12.5% and 14.7%, respectively. These previous expansions were direct responses to the growing demands of the war in Ukraine, where Russian forces faced significant losses in terms of both personnel and equipment. Some estimates suggest that Russian casualties, including those killed and severely wounded, could exceed 200,000. These losses have deeply affected the combat readiness of the Russian army, particularly in Ukraine, where the Ukrainian counteroffensive continues to pressure Russian troops. The 2024 recruitment drive, which aims to add 180,000 soldiers to reach a total of 1.5 million, is intended to address the manpower shortage. However, independent reports indicate that Russia is struggling to meet its recruitment targets. While the government called for 540,000 new volunteers in 2023, the actual figure was closer to 345,000. This recruitment gap reflects the ongoing challenges Russia faces in maintaining its military strength, especially given the high casualty rates in the war. One of Russia's main strategies to attract new recruits is through economic incentives. At the start of the war, the Kremlin offered recruits up to 1 million rubles as a signing bonus. For many Russians, particularly those from economically disadvantaged regions, this represented a significant sum of money, and in the early stages of the recruitment campaign, there was a notable influx of volunteers. However, as the war dragged on and the realities of military service, such as long deployments, high casualty rates, and inadequate equipment, became more evident, this financial incentive lost its effectiveness. By mid-2023, the Kremlin increased the signing bonus to 195,000 rubles and raised it again to 400,000 rubles in 2024. Nevertheless, the number of new recruits remained lower than expected. Many of those who were initially motivated by financial gain have already enlisted, reducing the pool of potential recruits. Additionally, for wealthier individuals, the sums offered by the government are not enough to outweigh the risks associated with military service. This has created a significant demographic problem in the Russian army. Reports indicate that the average age of new recruits now exceeds 40 years. This raises concerns about the physical fitness of these older soldiers, particularly in the challenging conditions of modern combat. According to reports, some volunteers have died not from combat injuries but from pre-existing health issues exacerbated by the harsh conditions at the front. In response to these recruitment challenges, Russia has introduced a new electronic military notification system, set to take effect on November 1, 2024. This system represents a significant shift from the traditional paper-based conscription system Russia has relied on for decades. Previously, draft notices were delivered in person, allowing potential recruits to evade summons and avoid service. However, with the new digital system, once a conscription notice is electronically sent, it is considered received after 7 days, regardless of whether the person accepts it or not. The shift to mandatory digital military service is part of the Russian government's broader effort to modernize the recruitment process and reduce draft evasion. By digitizing the conscription system, the Kremlin can issue draft notices more efficiently, and individuals who fail to report to the military office within 20 days of receiving a notice will face significant penalties. These penalties include travel restrictions, restrictions on buying and selling property, and limitations on financial transactions, such as opening a business or taking out a loan.